Ai te hunga whakarongo, ko kahurangi tēnei, e mihi ake nei, e mihi ake nei. Ko te takirau o te iho matua, and it's 11 a.m. Anei ngā pānui e whai ake nei. So next week, a part of Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori, please head along to reomaori.co.nz for all the events, different challenges, and mahi that you can do to be involved. So starting off our week, we have the water monitoring at Kohunui. That's this Saturday, 13th of September, from 8:30 to 1 p.m. That is led by Vanessa Tipoki and Paikea Te Whare as part of a kaupapa that they were taking around to our marae, starting at our southernmost there at Kohunui. Take a koha, and it'll be some good fun. The next one coming up is on Thursday, the 18th of September. This is the hikoi that's been happening for the last few years, organised by Te Kura Kaupapa Māori Waiata. So it starts at 11 a.m. and we'll start at the RSA car park, and then we'll leave from there and we'll arrive at the Trust House Rec Centre. On Wednesday the 17th September, the Rangitane have the Super 12 Kapahaka competition at Makota College, starting at 5:30 p.m. There'll be a free sausage sizzle. There have been some additions with the karitao, which are puppets, which will start us off at 5:30. A night of kapahaka with some of our schools and iwi representatives and a couple of marae in there as well. And it will end with a Marama Tuuta and tātai arorangi kaupapa done by our whanaunga from Kahungunu ki Wairoa, Ricky Solomon. We also have the schools kapahaka. Don't have a poster for that, but we have the schools kapahaka on Thursday at Chanel College, starting at 9:15 a.m. and on Friday at 10:15 a.m. After the hikoi on Thursday, as I said, we'll arrive at the Trust House Rec Centre, and there will be the launching of the Te Reo Māori Rautaki Reo, Te Reo Kia Rarapa, which is being launched by Ngāti Kahungunu ki Wairarapa Tāmaki Nui Arua Settlement Trust, ko te ingoa o Taua Rautaki, ko te Reo Kia Rarapa. So there'll be kai, entertainment, and to celebrate the launching of our Rautaki Reo from Ngāti Kahungunu. Nā reira, we do have a guest, special guest in today, but before we do that, a waiata from our whanaunga here. Kia ora. taua Waiata, and Whaia, you were just telling us a pretty cool story about that Waiata. Aye.
Yes, it was Morena. It was brought back to the Wairarapa by Pat Bolstead, who had learned it at one of her Atarangi courses. And she came back and I learned it somehow. And perhaps she taught it to the group we were in at the time. And I really liked it. And so I introduced it to Rāwhiti, kora Rāwhiti, and we took it on as our own. And it was really interesting because we seemed to be the only kahungunu group who took it, and ran with it. Because when I was at the correspondence school, Richard Puanaki was there with me, and we used to do recordings for the radio for the students. And one day he asked me, I don't know how it came about, but he asked me if I'd teach him that Waiata, because he heard it and he really liked it. But he was from Mairo, although he'd lived quite a lot of his time down in the South Island with his brother, and with Tihi, who we probably all know from here, it was his sister-in-law. But he and I learned it. I taught him, and then they had a concert at Ngāti Pōneke, and it was one of the songs that he and I and Davi Tairo sang in the concert. It was really good to have that song, to hear it all the time. And I noticed that when I went up to Waikato, I sang it up there. Must have been at a party or something we went to. I was up there on a 20-week student course for Te Reo, and I sang it, and then we all learned it, and it was particularly good for up there because it shows the connection between the Kingitanga and the East Coast, and so it was really nice to have that song that we could pull out every now and again and sing. Yeah.
Oh.
So that's the story of Mahinarangi.
Oh, rawe. A couple of us from this podcast went to Rāwhiti, or East School, Rāwhiti, and was a song that we sung all the time, and cool to hear the whakapapa on how it landed on our in our hands, and by the sounds of it, I suppose holders of that song and held on to it, and most of my generation know it and can pull it out, like you say, at any given time, whether it's a party or on the marae. Nō reira, ai. Tēnei te mihi ki a koe e te whaia. Please introduce yourself, but e te whānau, this is our special guest today, and an old a principal of mine from Rāwhiti, and nō reira, whaia marama tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe, tēnā tahi, because that's the name that I knew you by. I te taha o tōku hākoro, ko tararua te maunga, ko roamahanga te awa, ko pāpawai te marae, ko Ngāti Kahungunu te iwi, ko hemi tioka matiha tōna ingoa. Engari, i te tau tōku hākui, he whakapapa nō tāku. Ko maungaraki te maunga, ko ruamahanga te awa, ko te whiti te rohe pōtai, ko te whare o tūtamoki te papakainga. Nō reira, nō Ngāti Kai Paruparu, me Ngāti Hamua, tōna iwi, hapu. Yeah, my grandmother was from Te Whiti, but also from the pa of Maungaraki. She was a reiri, hene pakitia ki te rangi reiri, and she married parai ki te wiramu hemi. It was a hemi matiaha, but for some reason they dropped the matiaha name and just kept the hemi name.
Oh, kia ora.
So that's our whakapapa, my whakapapa, to Papawai and to Masterton, to Whiti and Mangakuta.
Kia ora. Because I've seen you see those names quite frequent in both marae, actually, eh?
Yeah.
With Huranui and Papawai. But I didn't know that, so thank you for telling us that connection with the Hemi Matiaha. Mihi nui. And yeah, like I said, the principal of ours back in the 90s.
Yeah. Back in the far days.
Back in the far days, it is a while ago now. So please tell us about your journey through education, how you got started, and your hiding up through all of that.
Well, I was just a girl from. I was born in Masterton. I lived in Masterton for a few years, and then I was taken by my mother's auntie, my mother's cousin, who was my auntie, Tangi O'Kane, who was ni Mātiaha, Tangi Mātiaha, to live at Papawai. And I lived at Papawai when I was a baby up until 3 or 4. And I often went there during the holidays and stayed with the Ngaira whānau, who we all lived in the same house. How we all fitted, I don't know. When you look back and see how small it was, because it's been pulled down. But and yet we all fitted and lived there. Well, to me, happily, And I often went back there for holidays and rode on the back of the horse and played in the creek and got watercress and eels. It was a great upbringing. But then when I was, I can't remember how old I was, but my mother's sister, she was a bit, she didn't like my auntie Tangi, and so she told her that my mother wanted me back. But my mother hadn't said that at all, but she just wanted to cause trouble. But however, she took me back, but she didn't take me back to my mother, and I lived with her in Nukutai Me Meha when it was in Masterton.
Kia ora.
Yeah, and I lived there for quite a few years with her. I guess I was a whāngai twice over, to my auntie Tangi at Papawai, at the back of the marae, and then to my auntie Mara Kokiri, who was my mother's sister, and at Nukutai Me Meha before it was moved to Masterton. And then one day I decided that I'd go back and I'd live with my mother, and they just lived up the road in a very Pākehā house. It had a wonderful front room, and a piano and carpet, you know, down the front hall. And so I decided that I'd go there and live with my mother. But while I was there, I guess I grew an attachment to my grandmother. And so when my mother, who we all say was very busy, when she went off to Rotorua or wherever she went, I stayed behind with my grandmother. And so I guess for a lot of years, she was the person who I took a lot of my learnings from. And she, I guess, along with my two aunties, helped shape me. And although I was very spoilt when I was with my grandmother, and I didn't always listen, when she died, when I was 12, all her teachings must have been really embedded, because I looked around and I thought that, you know, my mother was a labourer, my father was a labourer, and I thought that wasn't going to be me, because then you're dependent on other people, you know, all the time. And I thought, oh, no, I would just wanted something different. And so from 12 or even younger, I guess I was determined that I was going to become a teacher. And I had lots of role models that I kind of picked up on and that I liked. You know, good teachers that I had at Carlton Primary, just silly little things like they always had a hanky, or always polished their shoes, and yeah, it was just those sort of things that took my fancy. So when I decided that I was going to become a teacher, everything that I did was kind of propelled me towards that direction. And even though in my teenage years, when I went to Waiata College and I became a prefect, I was determined, even though every holiday I went out to the shearing sheds and I was a rouseabout, had a great time, earned lots of money, but I still knew where I was headed. I had lots of cousins who were really bright, but they couldn't they didn't stay at school. I don't know if they didn't like it, but maybe their situation forced them to leave early or leave school early. But I was determined that I was going to stay, and I was in for the long haul. And so I went to, eventually, when I finished the college, after 7 years, I went to Wellington Teachers College, and it was the best 3 years of my life, because there I met lots of other Māori who were the same mind as I was.
What decade was that? When you were at uni in Wellington?
That was at the end of the 60s and the start of the 70s. I'd heard about, you know, these parties where you'd sing all night, and I'd think we'd have a few of those, but we didn't have many. But when I went to Teachers College, we'd have them all the time. You know, we'd have them on a Wednesday night after kapahaka practice, and then we'd have them again on Friday, and then on Saturday, and you know, on Sunday we'd recuperate. So it was great 3 years, yeah. And they were Māori who could speak Māori and sing Māori songs, who could play the guitar. I just loved it. And although they were parties, I didn't drink very much. In fact, I didn't really take to drinking, but I used to love singing, and I'd sing all night on a bottle of water. Most times. Yeah, I just enjoyed it. The 3 years I spent at Teachers College, I loved it, and I loved the college. Just everything was great. And then after 3 years, I went out teaching, and the reality hit. I taught in Eastern Hut. And then after 3 years, I decided that I'd go to Porirua because that's where all the people seemed to be having a lot of fun. But I'd heard that the students there were quite hard to handle. They had different, they had a lot to contend with. But when I got there, it was great. It was just wonderful. I really enjoyed my time at Porirua teaching. Yeah. And I enjoyed that too. But it wasn't as good as the 3 years I'd had at Teachers College. Yeah. So I taught there for quite a few years. Then I had met my husband, had my children, and went part-time at the correspondence school. And after I'd been there for a few years, Paura Munson and I decided that I could always come home and learn te reo off Auntie Hine. And I thought, well, that's a bit mean. Maybe I should do it for everyone and get her to come. So Paura Munson and I set up a wānanga reo, where we'd have a week of total immersion, and I managed to talk Mike Collins and Hone Hore Hanganui and the guy Tibble, what was his name? He married one of the McKinleys. I can't remember his name. Yeah. He was a great guy. But they were all teaching at the Polytech. So I managed to talk them into helping me run the wānanga. And as it was, they were the teachers, and I ended up being the administrator. So I really didn't learn much at all. Yeah, because you had for anything to run properly, you have to have good administration of what you're going to do, where you're getting the money from, who's coming, have they enrolled, and just looking after everybody else. But your own, I didn't look after learning mine at Dell. So, but however, I did have a good time. And then they suggested that there was a position going at Awhiti, and would I like to apply? And I didn't really want to come home at that stage because I was enjoying myself in Wellington, because I'd got involved with Ngāti Pōneke, and in 1988 I went to the Nationals with them in Whangarei, and I was having a great time. And my children were in Ngāti Pōneke Young Māori Club. We went to Sydney, to Brisbane to perform on stage for about a week. The kids performed, and then they spent the rest of the time running around Dreamland or Dreamworld or SeaWorld and had a really great time. So I wasn't really ready to come home, but they all kept saying, well, just put in, just apply. So I did, and I had an interview, and funny, the interview should be at Nukutaimi Meha. And I thought, oh, this is strange. And when I went on, I remember one of the questions that they asked me, I wasn't really sure what my response should be. I wasn't sure what the answers should be, and I didn't really have an answer. So, but luckily, the meter must have run out of money at that exact moment because the lights went out, and so by the time they found enough change to put in the meter, which was quite a while, I had enough time to think of my answer. And yeah, so I always think, well, I was meant to go to Nukutaimi Meha, my childhood home, yeah, because they'd moved it to Masterton by then, yeah, the Anglican church had, because the Nukutaimi Meha was owned by it was owned by my uncle, who my auntie, Mara, Kokiri, had married. And his mother asked him and his sister, because they both had shares in Nukutaimi Meha, if they would please donate it to the church. And so it was their mother who was asking, so they said yes. Besides, they didn't really live here then. They'd moved to Rotorua. And so that's how the Anglican Church were given the meeting house. But I remember asking my uncle, why did he let it go? And at that time, really, he was the only one of our family who could have afforded to keep it. But he said, well, he had 8 children, and he was, my uncle's name was Jack Hemi. He had 8 of his children, his own children, and they had a new home, and he wanted to do it up, and it had an indoor toilet, which was most unusual in those days. We had an outdoor toilet, but at least it flushed, and they just wanted, I guess, more Pākehā life back in those times. So he said that's why he didn't put up a fight. That when they had a big meeting of all the Māori in the area to ask, would they be happy with it going, they all agreed yes. So they brought it to up to Masterton about 1971, I think. I can't quite remember the date. Yeah, but anyhow, that's where I had one of my first interviews for teaching. I don't know how I got off track. Sorry about that.
Ka pai. Well, just while we are off track, with Nukutaimi Meha, so the carvings are Maui up the top, and he's pulling up to Ika Maui.
Yep.
I've always wondered the amo, the 2 on the sides, the 2 vertical ones. Do you know who they are?
No, I don't.
Oh, no, ka pai, because we were I was talking to Robin Tangaroa, and I'd been scratching my head for ages about it, and he says that they are his 4 brothers, and it sort of all made sense to me, because Nukutaimi Meha, Maui's waka, Maui up the top, and then obviously he was with his brothers. So that was he only just told me that the other day. But no, ka pai, it's always good to learn something new about that marae, because I've seen the photos at Nukutai when they were moving it and when it was moved in, and then because the monument was moved after, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, quite a long time after.
Quite a long time. The monument used to stand outside the meeting house. It was facing the meeting house across in a paddock So, yeah, eventually they thought the two should be together. And that's how it came to be a Masterton. And you know, I think it's good that it is. Yeah, it's really well looked after.
Oh, I love
and
that marae.
Yeah, and it's well used by
Yep.
the community, both Pākehā and Māori, you know.
And one of the cool things about that whare is it's probably one of the, I think it's the the last of the traditionally built marae with its type of construction. So the tahuhu or the ridge pole in most houses of especially colonial times is just a rectangle board with your rafters coming off. But this one is a big, now what's the word? Obtuse triangle. And everything's, all the rafters are notched into it with the popo. So it's a real, probably the last of, especially in the Waiata that I know of, and not many I've seen the same, with that old type of construction. Yeah, it's a really nice building. And it's held up, even with that type of construction, with all the, however old it is.
Yeah.
It's stood the test of time, eh? It hasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it goes to show how our methods of construction back in the day,
Yes.
how they can still hold up. I remember when you turned up at, I remember the pōwhiri actually, when you came to East School.
Yep.
We had it out on the court in front of the hall, and it was a big pōwhiri, and those times were cool because I'd just gone into the rāwhiti from the mainstream into rāwhiti, and I suppose it might have been the age where I was taking a bit more notice, but that's when it started to eventually be cool to be Māori.
Yeah.
Like you had some of our movies and we seen ourselves on TV, like even though Once the Warriors and we know that movie, but there was people with mataora on their face, you know, and we were speaking reo when we could sort of connect to those people on the big screen. And then my time was on TV, and that was all in te reo pretty much, and it was our humour on TV as well. So, and then obviously kapahaka and some of the trips we went away for those sorts of things. So I always remember that time from when you started was when I suppose, or my generation anyway, we're sort of coming of age where it was cool to be Māori, I suppose. The Auckland Warriors had just started, and their logo was the you know, that tāmo called face with doing a pūkana.
Yeah.
You know, it was so from those times I have fond memories as well.
Yeah.
But then you were there for ages, and then my wife Jetta, she ended up going to Teachers College. How long were you there for? You ended up going back. Was that the same place that you did your training?
Yeah, I did my training in Wellington, and I spent 7 years at Rāwhiti, and it was hard because I'd gone there under a lot of controversy. There was articles in the paper every week about how I'd got the job, mostly because I was Māori. And I said, well, no, that's what I am, so it's probably why I did get it. But doesn't mean that I'm any less and than anyone else. And so for the whole time, for the 7 years, I felt as if I had to prove myself, you know, that I could do the job as good or better than anyone else, because you find that when you're Māori, whatever you do, you have to be as good as, or even twice as good as someone else to be even just start in the race. And that's how it was for me. I can remember I would go at 7 o'clock in the morning, sometimes I got 6, and I'd be there until 6 at night. just working, keeping an eye on the place, and making sure that it didn't get trashed, or it was difficult, and I found that singing was a good outlet for me. Was healing, and I joined 2 kapahaka groups. One I joined here on the marae, only because Auntie Punny Morris came around to my house and asked me if I would please start here on the marae kapahaka, and I said to her, yes, I will. But I knew all the time that I didn't really have the skills to do that, but I knew someone who did, and I'd get someone, I'd just replace myself. So I got Huri Hanganui, and Buttons, Kirahi, because she was a haere anyway. And I got them to do it. But I felt that I couldn't just start it up and walk away, so I joined them. But prior to that, I joined Maungaraki, and I joined that because I felt an affinity with them, mainly because of whakapapa, and so I wanted to get to know my family out there. So that's why I joined, and having the kapahaka and the singing was healing for me, as I said. So even though I worked hard, I suppose I played hard too, which is probably why I had my stroke. But I
went to a few of those Hiona Marae noho bear fire. I remember those days.
They were good, weren't
Hey, look
they?
at the t-shirt too. Can you see that? Hey, I'm asking Nanda to wear this t-shirt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Hey,
those were good
let's have a
times.
quick break. I want to play a song from the Hiona Parties, and I think you are too. You're in this video. Ai, he waita tēnei nā hone hure hanganui, I reira I te orokohanga o tēnei ropu whaia marama. Whakarauiri hia.
Whakarauiri hiara, au marama ke rā, kia kara pine I hora e. Whakarauiri hiara, au taranga ke rā, whakakora hiatura e. Nei ko taku ka ke rā I taka matua. I te toi huare wai ka ke are a kapati.
Kia puritia.
I te aka matua. Kawatere akarai pa.
Marihira I
Ka
mua.
tai te ka harwe hia hia nā kai o.
Pio haki hian.
Nei te kia para o
I rawe tawa Waiata.
Right.
No, thank you for telling us about that time back in your time at Rafti at East School. Obviously, as a kid, you're sort of just doing your thing, and we've said it before on this podcast, is that we got to remember that and thank our pakeke and our kaumātua kuia, our parents, during those years where you had to keep the fight going for us so we could have a fighting chance with our reo and our culture. So mihi nui to yourself and everyone around those times.
Yeah,
that
they
was
were good
doing all
times,
that.
though.
Yes, they were.
And you would know yourself how sometimes we had to drag our kids reluctantly into places where they didn't really want to be, but you look at them now and you think, wow. And I think of myself as the enablers. We enabled you to have a clear run to do what you had to do, but we prepared the way, I suppose.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think we've got to give credence or credit to those people from other areas that came in, like Papa Josh and his whānau, Rose, who was Makota, Mac, Tamatea, April Parata, Hori Hanganui, just, I can't remember the guy Tipple's name, but, they'd really added something to the region, and they gave us what we've got now, today. But, so, sometimes you think that the children don't realise the struggles that went on, but they were real, and and perhaps someone like you, who was sort of in the transition, can remember. I just want to recap on something you said about, you remember the pohiri when I went into East School. You probably don't realise that the people who took me on to East School was actually Peter Sharples.
Wow. I remember, it was huge.
Yeah.
It was. I remember it was. I was like, "Wow, this is huge." It was the biggest one I'd seen at that kura.
Yeah.
While I was there. Wow.
He took me on because Uncle Duncan, Hemi, was down at Papua, and they were having a wānanga of taiaha wānanga. And Peter was down there tutoring, and Uncle must have heard that I was going on to East School, and he phoned and asked and said, I'll be there. And I was blown away when I saw that he had Peter Sharples with him. Yeah, it was really special. And it's funny how you kids didn't even realise. Yeah.
1990. Yeah. Well, no, I remember it was huge. It was huge. And then I suppose during all that time, like we were saying, it was real fun times. And then being back home, being involved with the local kapaka group and starting up Hiona Marae at the request of one of our kaumātua, Nani Pani.
Yeah.
Nani Pani. Did that lead? Was it the same? Like, because they were telling you, come home, come and be the principal, just apply, start this thing, get this going, and take over this kaupapa. I bet you it didn't stop. Were there marae, like, I know you're a big part of Kahungunu and Ki Wairarapa and all the mahi that's happened there. How did you go with carrying on with into that side of the things?
Well, I promised myself that I'd have at least 3 years to get to know my job as a principal and to do everything that I had to do. I don't think people realised that one of the things about Rāwhiti East School was that many of the programs that we had implemented were actually used by Ero as an example of things that you could do. For example, bullying, you know. So to stop that or minimise it, I introduced having a person manning the library during the lunch hour, so that if any child didn't feel safe, they would have a safe place to go. Also, there was one child who was being bullied, and so I had them report to me after every day how was their day. They had to come along with the perpetrators, and then they had to say, well, you know, they'd done this or that, and they'd get a talking to, but eventually they were left alone. And some of these examples were used by Ero to use at other schools who were having similar problems, and they wanted me to allow them to say which school it was, you know, that it but I didn't want that, because I felt that what we were doing was, in some ways, I didn't want our children identified, but also I didn't want them. There was still a lot of work to be done, and you know, if you put your head up, then people are quick to chop it off. So I said no. It was just something that I needed to do. It was hard. Yeah. I don't know how I got onto that. Sorry.
No, that's all good, because I don't remember much bullying.
No.
When I was at school. Yeah. You know what? One thing we used to do, and I was talking about it on another episode, was during the State of Origin, the Queensland versus. Well, we used to play instead of Queensland versus New South Wales, we used to play Māoris versus Pākehās at East School. So during the time of, so we'd stay up on the Wednesday night, watch it, and then in the next day at lunchtime, it was Māori against Pākehās. And there was never any racism. It was just, if you're white, you're on that team. If you're Māori, you're on this team. And it was just so we could sort out some even teams. And I remember the Māori used to, because, oh man, who did we have? Like all the Fords, Kelly Ford and his two little brothers, all that whānau that lived down the east side. And we used to crack them every year. And I think it was my last year, they'd finally worked out, they beat us. They beat us.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it was all accepted. There was no hard feelings. It was just, and I suppose, thinking about bullying, that was probably one way that we sorted it out ourselves.
Yeah. I must say that the examples that I mentioned, they were all girls. Yeah. It was girls who were doing the bullying.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, we could carry on for another hour about East School and everything and Rāwhiti. But I wanted to get on to so you've done heaps for us here, like kahunganu on been a big part of that, and you're still attend a lot of those hui and hui for our kaumātua, and still doing a lot. But your latest thing, I suppose, in the last 3 years has been Māori Wards. Our first, e te iwi, our first Māori Ward for Masterton, and that's a role that you've taken up for us. Just wanted to get your kōrero on what it was like being the first Māori Ward Councillor in Masterton.
Well, I really stood for the Māori Ward because I was afraid no one else would, and we'd fought and talked our game up that we would do something. We wanted it, and yet when it came time, I was the only one who stood. You know, and I've never sort of admitted that before. But however, but once I was in there, I found that I quite enjoyed it. There's a lot of work to do, a lot of reading, and I don't know whether it was just me, but I was on a lot of subcommittees, and some of the subcommittees you'd have to go out visiting. Like I was on the climate or the environment change, and I'd have to go and visit the environmental schools and just see what they were doing. And so I do that. And some days you turn up and it was raining and they have a pōhiri and, you know, but I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed the reading. And I enjoyed learning new things, meeting new people. Yeah, I did enjoy it.
Oh, cool.
And one of the things that I noticed when I said that I would come and do this interview with you, that there are 3 Māori people. There are the 2 iwi reps and the Māori Ward person. That's me. And during our time, I've noticed that we don't speak up very often. That there's a lot of time when people are sort of not competing, but they've got things to say or questions, or but I find that if you save your voice for when things matter, people tend to take more notice of what you've got to say, rather than if you're talking all the time. It could be just my view, but I've noticed all 3 of us tend not to take part in every conversation, because there's every conversation going, and probably I do ask a lot of questions, but mostly it's for clarity. Sometimes it's you ask a question, you know the answer, and there's some other reason that you ask it, but it's purely valid. But I find that if you just speak when it's really necessary, people take more notice of you. And for example, there was something about an Edwardian day that they wanted to have on the same day as the treaty, the 6th of February. And, you know, I knew that it didn't feel right. And then I heard that there were some people who were really upset about it. And for the first time, I knew that some of the councillors were all for giving them the right to have this special day that they wanted on our special day, but however, and I thought, well, now I'm really going to have to say something. I can't let it go. So I stood up and said, I think the honeymoon is over. I need to say what I've got to say, and probably some of you won't like it, but I'm going to say it anyway. And then proceeded to tell them why I thought that the Edwardian Day on the 6th of February, when they could choose any other day of the year, to me was insensitive, and I didn't think it should happen. Well, I don't know if what I said or the fact that I said something, but eventually one of the councillors came up to me when I went to the toilet. He said, oh, it won't go ahead. So, it's things like that. Yeah.
No, I like that. I like that. You're right. If you, because we see it, and not just at hui, but some people like to comment or be a part of every conversation or every event or every take or every kaupapa, and then it's almost like not like the boy who cried wolf, but like there they go again, and
Yeah.
they're just chattering. So I love that. Yeah, save your whakaaro for the things that are important to you, and you don't have to.
Yeah. Keep your
It's-
powder dry.
Yeah, keep your powder. I like that. And I'm sure there's a whakatauki there somewhere that speaks to that.
Yeah.
But kia ora. That's because that is important. Has there been anything that surprised you about the system? That system?
No. I must say I've been really surprised at the a feeling of maybe of things Māori. It could be because I've got blinders on, but I really think that the council and most of its members really are really cognizant of what, just to some extent, of what Māori have to go through. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. We had Andrew Judd, who was here a couple of weekends ago, and he spoke about he was become popular a couple of years ago with his comment. He's a recovering
Yeah.
racist. Yep. And he had a good kōrero when he came to us at Makota, and had a good crowd there of a good array of whānau and Pākehā alike. It was a good crowd, but one of the things he said was like, I grew up in a world where my language wasn't a threat to anyone.
Yeah.
My language wasn't going to be taken away from me. My land wasn't taken away from me, so I had nothing to worry about. So to know that stuff is still sort of in our society, that's just the way people think. Yeah, they haven't been, an identity hasn't been
No.
meddled with throughout a whole lifetime of generations. So, no, that's good to know, Fire. That is good to know. I suppose we've only got 5 minutes left. I'll try to get us a bit longer. But obviously voting has started. We've got our packs in the mail. One of the things that we can do at Te Whānau is, especially if you've got kids, we sat down, we're going to sit down with our kids and show them how to vote and what are the things you go through, where you take them, and all that sort of stuff, and how important it is. So, not everyone is on that, is interested in local elections. It is with the price of butter and all that sort of stuff. Whānau it isn't on their radar as much. But I suppose the departing bit of kōrero from you is what should we be thinking about as voters in New Zealand, and especially for these ones with the Māori Ward referendum. Yeah, kia koe.
Well, of course, I hope that the Māori Ward continues. And if I look at the council, if they're representative, I would say it will. But then there's a lot of people that I don't know about. And so we can just hope. But I think that whatever happens, it's not the end. We're still going to be here. And, don't be despondent. where it's not a sprint, it's a long race, and well, we've been here for a long time, and we'll be here a long time after. Yeah. Do I think that our children need civic included in their curriculum? Yes, I do. But I think, especially with the kura, or maybe I'm mistaken, but they seem to be more aware. Maybe it's because of the marches or whatever. They just seem to be more aware.
Oh, wow, ka pai. No reira, tēnei te mihi ki a koe, whai marama. It's been a good journey down memory lane for us both. So, nā, mihi nui for all the mahi that you've done for our hapori, education, with our iwi, with our kaumātua, our marae, and now in your term with the Māori Ward, and yeah, tēnei te mihi nui ki a koe, ko rangatira mātou kahirangi i a koe, tō tainga mai, me o kōrero ki a tātou, no reira, tēnei te mihi ki a koe, tēnei te mihi ki a tātou.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.